The very, very first thing I want to get across in this video is that these do's and don'ts that I'm going to talk about predominantly apply to the initial stages of getting to know somebody. What you'll tend to find is that as you get to know the person a little bit better and as the relationship progresses, is that you can actually break some of these rules. So please take that on board. Another thing worth mentioning here is that a girl's upbringing and her background matters. So again, depending on how she's been raised and where she's lived, they're going to respond differently. So just remember, these are just general guidelines. Common sense must be applied. This actually might seem really obvious to some people, but it is actually a trap that I fell into in my earlier days, and that is texting a woman all the time. And the reason why I did it was because I thought by texting her all the time, it would keep me on top of her mind. But the rock solid truth is this: in the initial stages of getting to know somebody, you don't want to be texting all the time. The sole purpose of messaging each other is to arrange to meet up. You want to be communicating face to face, and that is the purpose of text messaging. And this really leads on from the previous point that I made, and that is you want to text with purpose. But you also want to keep your text messages nice and short. So think along the lines of if she was doing something and she's got loads of things going on, she can just pick up her phone and quickly read that message. So think 3 to 4 lines max. And you'll probably agree with me when I say this, and that is there is nothing worse than picking up your phone, looking at a text message, and thinking to yourself, I've got to read an essay here. You don't want to do it. So keep your messages nice, short, and to the point. Sometimes what you'll actually find is that it's better to get on a phone call, or even better than a phone call, is to get on a video call. And many girls actually prefer this before they meet up with a guy. And one of the benefits of a video call is that not only can you hear the person's voice, but you can see the facial expressions and the body language. Not to mention, you get a direct response. So if you're arranging to meet up with somebody, sometimes, keyword sometimes, jumping on a video call is the best thing that you can do. Also worth mentioning here is that let's say further down the line, you get into a relationship with this girl. When it comes to discussing sensitive and more complex things, getting on the phone is way much better than texting each other like pen pals. One of the biggest problems with traditional text-based messaging is that there is a little bit of an emotional disconnect. And I briefly touched on this in the previous point about getting on a video call. Well, one of the things that you can do to sort of add more emotion to text messages is to one, use emojis, and two, use GIFs. Not only do emojis and GIFs make text messages more readable, but they also make text messages more memorable. And in the initial stages of getting to know somebody, this is very valuable because she's probably got other guys texting her as well. It's actually a good way to stand out. This rule definitely applies to the initial stages of getting to know somebody, and that is don't double text. And I'm just going to be honest with you. My assumption is if I'm texting a girl outside of working hours, so outside of 9 to 5, I'm just going to automatically assume that she's seen that message. And the reason why I assume that is because we all carry our phones in our pockets. We are all trained like Pavlov's dog to pick up the phone whenever we hear a ding. So 9 times out of 10, it's safe to assume that she's seen that message. So at the start of a relationship, never double text. One, not only is it annoying, but two, especially if you don't know the girl, it can be a little bit invasive. Give people the opportunity to live and breathe. And this leads me perfectly onto the next point. In my earlier days, sometimes I'd be texting a girl and then all in a sudden communication would just cut off. And then what I would do is start going through all these scenarios in my head, thinking to myself, what have I done wrong? So when I say this, I'm really talking to my younger self, and that is don't make the call. And just to give you the heads up, it's actually estimated that roughly 60 to 70% of communication is non-verbal. Some experts actually suggest that that number is even higher. And some people will say it's as high as 90%. So the point I want to get across here is that the majority of communication is non-verbal. Whether it's 50, 60, 70, 90%, it doesn't matter. The majority is non-verbal. And if a girl doesn't text you back, that is a form of communication. But here's the thing. Just because a girl doesn't text you back, it doesn't mean she's not interested. She might just have a lot going on that day. She might be stressed from work. She might have things going on in her life. So at that current moment in time, she hasn't got the mental bandwidth to be texting you. But at the same time, it could also mean that she's not interested. So you've kind of got to read behind the lines. And this just really continues from the previous point that I was making, and that is the majority of communication is non-verbal. So let's just say, for example, purposes, right? You were texting a girl and you've gone 7 days without speaking to each other because you followed the no double text rule. If a girl hasn't texted you within the last 7 days, she's probably not interested in seeing you. And a lot of these dating gurus want to make dating complicated, but I'm going to make it super simple. And that is if a girl likes you, she is going to make your life as easy as possible. She's going to drop hints. She is going to text back in a reasonable time. You will know if a girl is into you. Trust me, you will know. So, for the sake of your sanity and your self respect, if a girl ghosts you for whatever reason, the best thing that you can do is move the fuck on.